he came to Minnesota from Norway, and he lived in southern Minnesota for 20 years. And Ole Ulen came then by himself to this area so that he could get his claim in on the land. The next spring, then he went back to Lake Park, picked up the family, brought him back. He was here for a whole year before the second family came and settled. About 5 years later, there was about 10 families that had arrived.
When the railroad came through, they started building up closer, and the town was actually incorporated in 1886. If the railroad hadn't been here, it probably wouldn't have been a town here. It grew to about 550 to 575, 580. That was the biggest it's been, and then it's maintained that population since then.
To know who we are, we have to know where we came from. And understand, not just know the names, but understand a little bit about the people, who they actually were, what they did. When did they get married? How many kids did they have? Where did they live? How did they live? What were their attitudes? What church did they go to? You know, lots of ways. It's our history is all incorporated with who we are as a person and individual.
It used to be when I was growing up as a young kid, Saturday night was a big night in Ulen because there was a movie going on at the theater, the stores were open, there were a lot more people, the farms were smaller, so you had a lot more people living in the country. And back then we had a bus that came through here twice a day. We had 2 passenger trains that came through town, and we don't have that anymore. And there's a few things that can remind people of that in here.
Well, I remember as a little girl going to the old museum, and I just always, that was a favorite thing for me to do in the summer, I guess. Or if we'd have relatives come in from out of town, you know, let's go to the museum.
May Forsyth, she was retired and came back here to Ulen, and she was really interested in doing something with the old museum, that old building down the street. And she asked me if I knew of some people who'd be interested in forming a new historical society and doing something with the artifacts over there. And yeah, I said I can probably round up a few.
May Forsyth, she had the kind of personality where when she started talking to you about something, before you know it, you were agreeing with her.
She's the one that designed the interior, you know, made the divisions and painted the walls, and she was just great.
There were so many others that put their labor and their hours and hours of labor and giving of not only their time but their money and everything in order to get this accomplished.
Well, it's a tribute to the whole community because everything's in here been donated. And a lot of money was raised. It was all raised with people who live here, who are from here, or the area. And it's been a real cooperative thing.
It belongs to all of us. It's a place where everyone can come and remember.
Here's the telephone switchboard that sat up on the second story of a store just across the street. If there was somebody that didn't have a phone, the operator would open the window and haul down to the kids and say, hey, run and go get so-and-so. Tell them they got a phone call at Central.
It definitely makes you realize how lucky we are, and hopefully it'll also educate our young people. I think it's just a great way to honor, you know, the people who came before us.
The purpose of the museum is to preserve from the past, and to show how the pioneers lived when they first came here, and we have artifacts that they brought from Norway. I mean, they only brought what they had to bring, and it's a nice place to exhibit them and store them.
There's some youngsters that really don't appreciate it. But we took it for granted too when we were younger, but as they get older, then they come in and say, gee, you know, if I had just thought about this a little bit more when I was younger, and you hear those type of comments often too.
I'm not the youngest, but I'm one of the younger members of the Historical Society, so I feel like, you know, we need to continue to build from, you know, the youth on up so that we can continue to offer this for people.
We're not focusing just on Norwegianness. I guess we're focusing on our American heritage based on what our settler families that lived here and their descendants, of course. And some of the equipment that they use, tools and furniture and clothing and of course pictures. This is really a treasure.
There's been so much that has come in as new artifacts constantly, you know, since this building has been opened.
We gave them this kubis stool. It's a log chair that's made from a basswood tree. And the tree grew here northwest of Ulen on the Kermit Blomstall farm.
It allows people to say, yeah, we really like what you've got here. We'd like you to, you know, show some of our family artifacts, and we're more than happy to do that.
And this is one that my grandparents had in their house. As a little kid, when we were down there, we would sit on, my brother and I would sit on the sides of this. And my grandfather had a chair close to him, and so this has got some good memories of this stove here with me.
A lot of these things are really familiar to me that, you know, when I was growing up, my mother and dad had those things.
This hat was made by May Forsythe. She made a dozen or so of these. They're all made out of pheasant feathers, very colorful, and it shows her artistic ability. Older people, some of them will come to, I remember this. We used to have something like that. Oh gosh, I told my mother she shouldn't throw that away, you know, and so there's a lot of reminiscing going on.
The citizens here have pride in their community and their past, and they're proud to bring visitors in and show them.
And people that moved away and they want to come back and see, and they're all impressed. Everybody's impressed. They just rave and rant.
This museum does mean something to everybody in town. There's actually some people in town who've never been in here. A small percentage. Very small. But it's like on Turkey Barbecue Day. This is where we see the evidence of how much people like this.
Turkey Barbecue Days started 56 years ago, and so many area towns had different celebrations, and we wanted to do something unique and different.
The first one was in September, of 1962. They put 40 turkeys on the 60-foot spit, and it was $1 for all you could eat. Within 5 years, we had 2,000 people.
It's kind of a tradition. People come back to Ulen for a turkey barbecue, but even though they were at the museum last year, they always seem to come back in.
I think it's a great thing. There's not very many small towns that has a museum. It's time for younger people to come in, but that's kind of tough. But we got some good people taking it over and taking care of it.
I really think that this museum will be here for a long time to come.
This is the highlight of Ulen as far as I'm concerned, so I'm real proud of it.